think most Rhodesian soldiers would agree that the calmest voice on the battlefield was always that of the chopper pilot. No matter what was taking place, they seemed impervious to any form of panic. So it was a bit of a surprise to me on one occasion as we were being choppered out to a farm that had been attacked, to find that the pilot of this particular aircraft was anything but calm. In fact, I could see by the body language from where I was sitting behind him that he was becoming extremely irritated. And as I leant forward, even above the sound of the chopper, I could catch quite a few swear words. The man was beside himself with frustration. And I wondered, what on earth was the problem here? And then we began climbing. And we went higher and higher and higher. And I looked down and I thought, I've never been in a helicopter this high before. What is this guy doing? And then we began to make big orbits. And eventually he motioned me to speak to him, and he asked me if I knew where we were. Well, I didn't. I had been sitting in the helicopter, wrapped up in my own thoughts, and it's not my responsibility to know where we are. I knew where we had to go to. I'd marked the place on my map, but it's his job to get us there. And he was clearly lost. And he then made another startling announcement that he thought we would be running out of fuel soon. And did I happen to know where there was a fuel dump? I said to him if he could find the Dandy River, he might be able to locate the Kachuta Council office. And as far as I knew, I had seen some drums of fuel stacked there. And he seemed to cope, and we found the place, landed there. The chopper tech refueled the aircraft while we waited, and we compared notes, and eventually we now knew where to go. And so we did arrive at the farm, but very late. By this time there were a number of camouflage vehicles standing around. The cops were in attendance, talking to the family. Fortunately, no serious harm had been done in this terrorist attack. They had revved the farmhouse and then had just taken the gap into the bush. So nobody had been injured, nobody hurt, thankfully, just some superficial damage to the buildings. Well, the chopper took off and we were left to commence a follow-up. We found the spoor and started following them. And we did so until we came to quite a large, sprawling village complex. Many huts scattered over quite a big area. And we made inquiries there, and we were told that the Gooks had arrived there, a big group of Gooks, and had asked for food, and they had said that so many huts should provide so many plates of food. And as I listened to this being related to me, and I began to make some mental notes, I thought, this sounds like an incredibly large group. The one we were tracking, I mean, they weren't that big, but they had come to the village and they had met up with others there. Well, I spoke to my Shangans and I said, just double check the figures for me here, because I can't believe what I'm hearing. If those group of huts provided so many plates, that group so many, and that group so many, if I add it all together, it comes to almost 100 men. And they said, yeah, there were a lot of them here. There were a lot. Now, 100 Gooks. At that time, our army was very, very extended. 100 Gooks would be more than our whole company. We would be lucky if we were half that number of combat soldiers. And so I thought, boy, this should be interesting. This is an opportunity not to be missed. Surely 100 men can't just give us the slip that easily. And so we set off after them. And it was inevitable. They started breaking off into little splinters, and we stuck with the largest group. But by this time I had radioed in a report. I told them what was going on, and that we were on the trail of 100 Gooks. Well, of course, this created a bit of a sensation back at our base camp, and they eagerly awaited to see how things were developing. As the day wore on, I started feeling uneasy, not because of the gooks, but it was just my trackers seemed to be walking further and further apart. And I would go to the one, say to him, have you still got spoor? Of course, we did this all with silent signals. I would say to him, have you got spoor? And he would say, yes, he has. And then when I would look around and I would see, but hang on, I don't see any spoor here. And I would signal across to the other man, have you got spoor? And he'd say, yes, he's got spoor. And I'd say to the man that I was with, where's the spoor? And he'd say, oh, I've just lost it, but they're going in this direction. I'll pick it up again soon. And so this is the way we proceeded. And eventually I thought, let's just stop for a minute. And I went to the one, and I found no spoor. I went to the other man, and I found no spoor. And I said, what are we doing? Where are we going to? And they said, no, we're on their trail. It's just that we've lost the spoor a bit here and there. But we're going to find them. And I said, just wait. I did a small 360. I found no spoor. I made a larger 360 on my own. I found no spoor. And then I could see what was going on here. They had taken me right off the trail. And I was so upset about it. I didn't speak to them. I could see the guilty expressions on their faces as they looked at each other and they looked at me. And I went and sat down, I remember this so clearly, on an anthill. And I was so bitterly disappointed. I was really unhappy because I had no idea how far back along our tracks they had abandoned the follow-up. And I had told our platoon commander that I was on the trail of 100 gooks, and now I would have to radio back and say I'm on the trail of no gooks. And what a thing to have to explain. Absolute humiliation. And I was almost in tears. It was a blistering hot day. The sun beat down. We were all tired. I was tired. I was thirsty. But to think that we had deliberately left the spoor, it was almost too much for me to bear. And I never said a word, but they knew that I knew. And I thought, you guys, you caught me this time. You will never, ever catch me again like this. And we went back. At that time, our platoon base was at an old abandoned farmhouse. And at the back of this building was some kind of a boiler. I don't know what it was used for, but somebody had made a fire in there, and the men gathered around it in the evening, and I sat down there, and when they all dispersed to go to bed, I was still mulling over this thing, staring into the flames. And one of the Shangans, the older of the two, came to me and sat down next to me, and he said, "Sir, I'm sorry that we lost the spoor today." And I said, "Yeah, right." And he said, "You know, you will leave Rhodesia still one day, because we all know what's happening here. But I will have to stay behind." He says, "And I will need to be able to look after my family. I'm not going to be able to do that if I am crippled or if I am injured." He said, "Right now I feel as though when the Patriotic Front comes to power, that I'll be taken to a butcher shop." So I said, "Yeah, I understand." So he said good night and he left. And I thought that was very true. That was very true. And I didn't judge him quite as harshly. But nevertheless, I made sure every follow-up after that I was watching the gooks, I was watching their trail, I was watching where I was in the bush, and I was watching my Shangans. That was the last time that they would ever have been able to lead me off the spoor.